Welcome back to our video on arrays. So arrays are a variable or a group of variables that can store many items of the same type, and the individual items that you're creating and storing are known as elements, and they are stored sequentially, and they're identified by the array index, which is sometimes called a subscript, as you'll see in a minute. So arrays may contain any number of elements. The elements must be of the same type. So typically we're going to be using integer, maybe char, but not floating point. Okay, so we'll stick to int. The index is zero based, which means we will start our indexes at 0. And that's a really important characteristic to understand how these arrays work, because they can get confusing. Array size must be declared as specified at the declaration. And what that means is you cannot add an element of an array after you've already created it. Arrays are declared much like these ordinary variables that we normally see in our code. So we have the type of variable, so that could be int or char, our identifier, which is our array name. Again, it's all lowercase using the intercat method or camel case. And then the size or the number of elements we want in the array is enclosed in this square brackets. So that size refers to the number of elements, and the size must be a constant integer. So if you look here at two examples, we've got a type of array, type int, with the identifier called num, and we have 10. So we've declared this array to be size 10, okay, and it can hold up to those 10 integers. Char is another type of variable data type, and we can create a array here in this example with 25 different characters, and there's the identifier called ch or ch. How we initialize them is that we can do it actually when we declare them at the same time. So here's the same example we saw in the previous slide, which is type and the array name, array identifier, enclosed by square brackets, the size, and then we use this curly braces separated by commas to initialize each individual element in the array. So in this example, we have declared an array of type int with 5, okay, and you see that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 are all separated by a comma, but they're all of type int. Same with character. The little apostrophe here on either side of that character denotes it as a character. Characters can be letters, numbers, characters from the keyboard, all separated by a comma, and again, it matches the number of elements that we have here, and it matches the type, which is char. You can see it's all enclosed in those curly braces. So how do we use an array? Well, arrays are accessed like these variables, but with an index. So the index may be a variable, it may be a constant, but typically you're going to see that these elements in the array always start with an index of 0. Okay, and that's a really important point to make, because it can get confusing when you start at 0 but you have a certain number of elements, as I'll show you in this one example. C does not provide any bounds checking, so you could be checking for a particular array which has an index that is out of bounds, that meaning it doesn't exist. You haven't declared it, so it won't actually check that like it does in Java. We'll give you an array out of bounds exception error, and C, it doesn't do that. So this example here declares integer I, and it also declares an array with 10 different elements. And those elements, okay, can be initialized using a loop like we've got down here. So I know that 10, okay, is really, if I start from 0, I can actually put this in my expression for the for loop, and it will initialize them automatically to 0. So that I, every time it loops, is replaced by 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. Each individual element is being initialized. Now, if you look at the bottom line here, this is a really important one I want you to focus on. It says set fifth element to 42. Well, why is this a 4 if this is the fifth element? That's because we have our indexes which all start at 0. So if you think about what A4 is? Well, A4 is actually the fifth element because we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That means this is the fifth one. We've set it to 42. So what's the last element? Well, you're right. That would be 9. So if we have 10 elements, A0 would be the first one and A9 would be the last one. Let's look at our example for our hello tutorial. Okay, you see here I have created an array of type int. Okay, it's all unsigned. And I've called it bitmap. Okay, and it has 30 elements. And so here are your 30 elements, all enclosed in those curly braces, separated by a comma. And I've just put it on the next line so you can see it visually, but you don't have to do that. You could string them along this way. It's really up to you how you want to do it. But this is spelling out the word hello. So if you actually turn your keyboard, or sorry, your monitor, and you turn it in such a way you can see the letters are actually spell out the word hello. Okay, this is being the H, this is the E, there's the L, there's the L, and there's the O. Okay, and when those LEDs light up at certain points and you streak your hand across with your breadboard, you'll actually see the word hello if you do it in the dark. Anyway, going back to what we were saying earlier, that this bitmap, because it has 30 different elements, bitmap 0, well, where is that? Well, that's the first one here. So what's the last one? Bitmap 29, correct. So between bitmap 0 and bitmap 29, we have our 30 elements. Okay, so that concludes our discussion on arrays. We're only looking at one-dimensional arrays. If you want to get more in depth about two-dimensional, you can ask me about those in class.